Hello, my name is Jacqui Loustau, and I've been invited by the Yarra Libraries as part of the Tech Talk series to speak about what you can do to protect yourself online. I've been in security for over 2 decades, working as a consultant in government, banks and other sectors. I spent several of those years working in Europe and Australia, and how things have changed since then. I left a big bank last year to join Cinch Security, who helps small businesses get on top of their cybersecurity. I'm also the founder of the Australian Women in Security Network that aims to connect, support and inspire more women to pursue a career in cybersecurity. I'm also a mother of 2 active boys, and I like doing presentations such as this to help educate people on what they can do to stay safe online. But first, I'd like to start with an acknowledgement of country. The Yarra City Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri people as the traditional owners and 2 sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We also acknowledge the significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here today and to the elders past, present and future. So today I'm going to be talking more about what cybercriminals are after. I'm also going to explain some of the latest cyber threats and scams and to give you a few tips on what you can do to protect yourself and your loved ones. So what are these cybercriminals after? Well, actually, they're after anything of value that they can sell or use for their own benefit. Things like personal information, and this could be things like the photos that are on your computer or on your phone. It could be medical data that they could sell on. It could be identity data, such as your passport and driver's license, that they could use for their own purposes. Financial information, such as your credit card details and banking details to get into your accounts and extract your well-earned cash. So think about the information that you have and what might happen if it got into the wrong hands or disappeared. So the other things that they're looking for are system access information. So if you work for a particular company, you may be potentially a target for them and their bigger goals as well. So they might be trying to get into your personal accounts and via your personal computer in order to then access the company that you actually work for. And according to the Australian Cybersecurity Centre, they receive an average of 1 cybercrime report every 10 minutes. We unfortunately hear about it in the news all the time, from hospitals being made unavailable so operating procedures can't go ahead, to universities being shut down. And lately, we hear about a lot of information about social media accounts being taken over, like Facebook and LinkedIn. So it really is an important topic. So now I'm going to explain some of the most common scams and cybercrimes that are out there today. I'm going to start off with romance and dating scams. So finding love can be quite hard. Imagine if you're doing online dating and you finally meet the love of your life who quickly expresses their feelings to you. They say that they can't meet in person, but you chat every minute of the day. And then one day they say that they want to come and see you, so they want to book their plane tickets. As unfortunately they're strapped for cash this month, they ask, could you please send some money so they could come over? So you transfer the money over, and then suddenly you get an email from them or a message saying that unfortunately something's come up, so they can't come this month, but could you please send some more money so they can rebook it and come next month? And it goes on and on and on. It's so sad that scammers play on people's emotions and vulnerabilities, but unfortunately this is what's happening. So be wary of online dating profiles that don't match someone's description of themselves, or they may look like that they've come from a magazine. It's also known that scammers sometimes pose as investigators, offering to track down the original scammer and hoping for justice, the person is instead scammed again. So the way that you can prevent this is that you can do a Google reverse image search to check if the person is genuine or is fake. Because most of the time, the scammers reuses the photos of other people. So it's also a good idea to even check your own photo to make sure your face appears in the right places and the ones that you expect. The next one I want to talk briefly about is investment scams. So imagine receiving an email where you can become a millionaire overnight, or you can triple the return of investment for low risk. Sounds too good to be true, so you decide, okay, I'm going to go to a webinar to hear more. So a lot of these investment scams involve getting you or your business to part with your money with the promise of a questionable financial opportunity. You'll often come along to a free webinar and they'll talk about how to become this millionaire overnight, and subsequent webinars cost a significant amount of money and investment. So the best thing for you to do before signing up to any of these kind of schemes is to check the ASIC Connect website to see if an investor scheme currently has an action against them and to check that that business is legitimate. The next type of scam I would like to talk about is blackmail. So just imagine you receive an email to yourself saying, "Dear Mark, we know that your password is password123. We now have all of your photos and videos of you, and we will actually release them all if you do not pay up." So this email came out to quite a few people last year during COVID-19 when people were in lockdown. And they used these blackmail email, they used the data from the LinkedIn database breach in 2016. So they had all of these username, passwords, and names, and they assume to some degree that you use the same user credentials if you haven't reset your username and password since then. So what they do is they take your name, your email address, and they assume that you use that same password 123 for all of your systems and haven't changed it since then. And unfortunately, quite a few people have paid from these types of schemes. The other one is ransomware. So you open up an email to see a friend asking you to check out a really cool deal that they just found out. And then your heart sinks because you see a message on the screen telling you that your data has been encrypted or locked away, and you need to pay a certain amount of money in order to get it back. So ransomware is a lucrative business now, costing more than $241 million, and companies are paying the ransom. So this is then furthering funding the cyber gangs. We hear about it in the news all the time. The big brands in Australia like Lion Beverages, Regus Aged Care, BlueScope, Garmin, My Budget, Services New South Wales, Toll, and the list keeps going on, unfortunately. And these cyber criminals are getting a little bit more smart, and they're actually even saying that they will release the information if you don't pay up. So the best way to protect yourself against these types of threats is to protect your system with the latest antivirus, to pause before you click on an email attachment and confirm with somebody beforehand if it doesn't seem quite right. And also take backups. So in the event that your information is locked up, you can actually restore it from backup and don't need to pay that ransom. The other important thing is to report it. The more that you report it, the faster that we can take down these cybercrime gangs. The next one I'm going to talk about is email, SMS, and phone scams. So ultimately what they want to do with these is to get their hands on your hard-earned cash. And they do it by playing on human emotions and, unfortunately, your trust. So with phishing, which is tricking you via email, 90% of all cyber attacks were actually due to phishing. So just imagine you receive an email from one of the services that you use, like Google, Amazon, WhatsApp, Facebook, Microsoft, Netflix, asking you to click on a link and because you urgently need to reset your password. A lot of the time people will click this link. And these 6 brands that I just mentioned were the most imitated brands of 2020. So they're getting smart. They have marketing teams that actually make professional emails looking pretty genuine. And they're trying to fish for information or credentials and lure you into clicking on this. The other type of email scam is that modifying of payment instructions. So imagine that you've just bought a house, you receive an email for the deposit to be paid into a particular account, and then 1 week later you get a call to say, have you managed to transfer the money? and your heart sinks. You know that you've just been scammed. And they're trying to what they're trying to do is to extort money from you by tricking you into do things like modifying payment instructions. They're preying on investment and mergers, and they're requesting for example, salary updates as well. And this type of scam is increasingly on the increase. And that's largely because it's hard to detect, because a lot of the emails have it's just text. It's not a link that is malicious or a document that's malicious. It's purely in the text. And for this one, it's mainly awareness that can help prevent this one. If something doesn't seem quite right, please make sure that you try to reach out to that person to double check that that is indeed where the money needs to go, or is indeed somewhere that they an email that they wanted to send. So these brands that they're imitating are why email scams are so popular. So the important thing to do is to look out for the clues that are in the emails. These ones are from the Australian government, and as you can see, they don't include, it's not personalised, because the scammers send it to thousands of email addresses. And here they're actually asked to provide personal information like their given name, family name, date of birth, tax file number, and their address. The government agencies and banks and big corporates will never ask you to reply to an email providing that sensitive information. You'll also see in here inconsistency of language and text and grammar, and the government will never send you an email of that, like that. And that's red flags for you. So other clues that you will have is, for example, in this email from Coles, is that the email address might not seem correct, although that is something not purely to rely on. For this particular example, there's double S in there. These are harder to detect, but as I said before, they're all little clues to something not being quite right. Also, you'll see if you hover over the link here, you will then see, and don't click on it, you will see that the website that it's going to is not the Coles website. They also will put urgency here, don't miss out, and there's probably grammatical issues there too. The other one is about text messages. So this is an example of a text message from MyGov. You can see in the SMS1 or SMS-A that it doesn't go to a government website, and this one does go to the government website. So it's always important to check that. And one thing to pay attention to is that you may receive a legitimate SMS, and then straight after that, it could be an illegitimate message. So don't trust that particular thread is from MyGov. It's always important to have a look at each message as itself. So you can actually go down the bottom here. I've put the website, the cyber.gov.au website, where this information, these examples were taken from, and it's actually a phishing test. So you can actually go and test yourself to see if you can work out which of these emails are fake and which ones are genuine. So the next one I'm going to talk about are fake websites. So last year, due to COVID-19, Australians lost approximately $6 million to COVID-themed scams. So these were emails saying, we've got the latest vaccine, click here to obtain it now. Discounts on, toilet paper, please click here to obtain your discounted toilet paper. And the other one that came up quite a bit were puppy scams. So this one was where people were advertising that there's a puppy for sale, and when it came to actually then getting the puppy delivered, the puppy wouldn't actually arrive, and the person had paid that money to the cyber criminal. And Australians actually lost $300,000 to those types of scams last year. Again, many scammers use photos of other people, so use the Google reverse image search to see whether or not that photo exists somewhere else. The best thing to do to prevent against this is to try and use reputable websites and the ones that you know, or to shop local. Bookmark those websites that you commonly use so you know that you're going to the right place. And wherever possible, try to use Chrome and Google because they have controls in place, and the latest software, obviously, updates on Chrome, because they have special software there that are preventing from anything malicious getting through to you. So the last type of cyber threat that I wanted to talk about is about fraud. So this is about when someone is trying to deceive someone for financial or personal gain. So how does this work? There's quite a few different ways in which this can happen. And what first of all happens in this scenario number one is that a target is selected. So this could be via social media or a database of username and passwords that have been obtained in a data breach. And what they do is they work out the password of these particular accounts that they're trying to get to. Once they have that, their target is required, they can actually then gain access to your personal information or access to your money. Another way is if you click on a link and it opens an attachment or it has a document that has malicious software in it. They can then capture the details of everything that you're typing if that's that kind of virus, and to gain access to what they want. So this is why it's really important that you check the information that's out there online. So, do a Google search on your name to make sure that everything there is what you want out there in the wild. Be careful of what you put on social media, so don't put your date of birth or if you're going to be going on holidays or any clues as to what your password might be. It also is what you put in LinkedIn, for example. If you say that you are the chief financial officer for a big bank and you're responsible for approving payments or things like that, then you can very often be a target. So it's good to check what you have, what information you are putting out there. The other important thing is to pause before you click on an email or website. You should always have the latest updates on all your devices. And it's also why it's important that you check that antivirus software and firewalls are enabled. So this is a little graph, a little chart, a little table, to be exact, of why passwords are so important. The longer the password, the better. So when it comes to the password, it takes 1 second to guess because they have a database which compares against all the different permutations and combinations of passwords that have been used in previous data breaches. And password, unfortunately, has been a very common password for a lot of people. It takes 4 seconds for something like da-da-da. It takes about 6 seconds for password 123, so it's got some numbers in there. Something like summer 2021, it takes 3 hours to guess. Something that has 3 words in it, random words, but together means something, can take 4 years. And a passphrase like the green tree outside my house, something that you can remember and visually look at, it takes 922 centuries in order to crack that password. So why is it important to have this unique type of password? So most of you will know Mark. So Mark is the CEO of Facebook, the founder and the CEO of Facebook. And in 2012, the password that he was using for LinkedIn was stolen from a group of hackers. And it wasn't until a few years later that they sold it on the dark net in 2016. So his password was sitting there alongside with a lot of other people's passwords, actually 6.5 million other people, including mine. But unlike mine, though, Mark's wasn't particularly strong. It was actually da-da-da. So pretty soon, these accounts were put on for sale. They started to get shared freely among hackers. And eventually, somebody decided to check to see whether or not he was using that same password on other social media platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter, Pinterest, and other spaces. And lo and behold, he was actually using the same password for all of those social media platforms. So pretty quickly, Mark and some others, other technology founders, found themselves having their accounts being taken over and messages being posted on their behalf. So I mentioned in my link that my LinkedIn password was also compromised alongside with Mark's. And the reason I know this is because I subscribe to a free service called Have I Been Pwned? So I recommend that you check your email and phone number in this website here. And the reason why phone number is important is recently there was a breach of Facebook, and included in there were a whole lot of people's phone numbers. So it's a good idea to check all of your email addresses, your personal emails, and also your work emails and your friends and family. And you can also subscribe to get notified when your email address turns up in future data breaches as well. The other important thing to do is to secure your email. So you can do that through unique strong passphrases, which is what I talked about before. And once you do that, you'll start to realize that you can't remember all of those passwords. It's impossible to remember that. So the use of something like a password manager can help you with that. The other good thing about it is that if it integrates into your different systems, so you don't need to type those passwords in as well. The other thing to consider, and I highly recommend doing, is to implement multi-factor authentication for your email. So if you think about it, where your password resets go into, where all your important documents are, it's in your email. So multi-factor authentication prevents people from getting into makes it harder for people to get into your account because they would need to know your password, but also a unique code. So we see it as something like that's something that you know and something that you have. So on your mobile phone, you'll get a unique code that you will then enter that information. So it's like when you come home from work, you lock the car with one key, you enter your house, with one key, then you take out your keys, and then you might actually open the back door, fly screen door, with another key. And then you turn, off the alarm as well. So all of those different things that you do, you're not using the same key to get into every single door or everything in your life. You have different, keys for every different element of your life. And you also might have extra controls in place on top of that to make sure that no one gets into your house. And the same should go with your digital life. So just in summary, the things that you can do to protect yourself is to pause and verify when something is suspicious. So this is phone calls, SMSs, email, social media messages, which is getting quite common as well. Protect your email and systems. So when I talk about that, it's use unique, strong passwords, get a password manager, update your software on all your devices. This includes your network devices, the Sony PlayStation, your kids' iPads, especially if they're old ones. Turn on automatic updates and make sure that you check that frequently to make sure that they have always got the latest updates. And activate multi-factor authentication on as many of the accounts as you have. Majority of the big systems nowadays will use it. So it's a matter of going into the documentation of that particular or that website, and they will always have an FAQ which says how to turn on, how to activate, how to implement multi-factor authentication, or it could be called two-factor authentication. The last thing is to check your digital footprint. Do a Google search of yourself to make sure that everything there is what you want it to be, and also to check your email and phone number to see whether it's out there. And if it is, reset it immediately. So there's quite a few things that I covered today. Hopefully you learnt a few things. And if you want to find out more I recommend subscribing to ScamWatch. You can do that you can have email notifications. And I also recommend that you sign up or follow their Twitter feed, because the latest scams are always posted there quite quickly. Also visit the Australian Cybersecurity Centre. Their Stay Smart Online resources are quite useful. Also, the eSafety Commissioner has a lot of information there on how to stay safe online, especially for kids, and having discussions about security with children. And in the event that your identity has been taken over or you've been compromised, it's a good idea to contact ID Care, because they can then help you with all the necessary steps to get your identity back. And if you have any questions, then please contact myself, and please follow me on social media. Thank you very much for your attention.